I've used print in a couple of the previous videos, but let's now have a look at print in a bit more detail. So print is used to display things in the window, in the console window here in idle itself, and we can print a variety of different things. So we can print a number, so 1 for example, and we can print text, so hello. And we can print variables, so we did mention variables in the previous video as well, so we can print A, or we can do calculations straight off, so we can do things like print 3 plus 2. Notice here that I'm using brackets around the thing that I want to print. In Python 2 you don't need the brackets, in Python 3 you do, so even if you're using Python 2 it's possibly a good habit to get into to put them in. There is one situation where they don't behave in exactly the same way, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. So if I save this program now and run it, we can see what it'll do. So it should print all of these things. It should print 1 and then hello, and then it'll print 2 and then 5. That's what we're expecting. So rather than displaying the calculation, it prints the result of the calculation. That's quite useful. So notice that it started from the top down, and also it's started each thing on a new line. So there are some other things we can do as well. We can use special symbols when we're printing text. So for example, if we did this, so if we do print hello and \n is for a new line, so like pressing enter. So if I print that hello \n world, what I'll get is hello and world on separate lines. Hopefully, there we go. So that's a kind of special combination of characters we can use. What we can also do is there's a \t, which is a tab, and that can be quite useful to display tables. So if I do something like this, so name tab age, and then print Andrew tab 21. So tabs behave in the same way as they do in Word, so it will move over to a particular column. So if I save that now and run it, let's see what that does. So tab will put a space in, but it will jump to a certain position on the screen. So there we go. So because I used a tab, both of those things start in the same position. So that's quite useful for doing simple sort of tables. We can also combine information. So we haven't looked at input yet, but imagine we had some text that we wanted to combine. We can do that. There's two ways we can do that. So if I ask somebody what their name is, so here I'm using that's a variable called name. You can tell whether something is going to be a suitable variable name when you're using the editor, because it will stay black. So if you want to create a variable and say, let's see, can I create a variable called print? If you type it, it turns orange, and that indicates that it's a Python command and we can't use it. So name equals, now I'm going to use raw input here because that's the Python 2 way. So in Python 2, if you want a number, you use input, and if you want text, you use raw input. Python 3, you use input for both. So we can ask the person what their name is. Oops, what is your name? And when they type it in, it appears immediately after the end of the string that forms the question. So I'm going to put an extra space in there. So that is going to ask the user what their name is, but then it won't do anything with it. So what we can do is, well, there's two ways you can do this. So you can print, you can use concatenation. So remember, we used the plus symbol when we were looking at variables. So we can put some text in, so we can say hello plus name. So we're using the variable nice to meet you. So we can join it all together to form one long string. So if we save that and run it, what it'll do is it'll ask what my name is, and I'll say Andrew. Oops. And it'll say, hello Andrew, nice to meet you, because I've used concatenation to join that together. The other way to do it, in Python 2, you can do it like this, and this is the situation where I said it is slightly different in Python 3. We need to dispense with the brackets, and we can use commas instead. When you use commas, you don't actually need the extra spaces as well. It puts extra spaces in for you as well. So so now if I say John, it'll say hello John, nice to meet you. So it's done the same sort of output, just using commas instead. Where you gain by doing that is if we say, so if we're asking a person a different question, so if we said, how old are you? And notice now I'm using input because that's going to be a number, and then I can change that to something else. So what can we say about the age? Let's say next year you'll be, and then we'll try and add on age plus 1. So here we're mixing text and numbers, aren't we? So age plus 1 is obviously going to be the age next year. So when I run that, it'll say, how old are you? And I'll say 21, and then it'll give me that error which we got in the previous video saying you can't join string and integer objects together, so you can't add text and numbers. So it doesn't like that. So you've got two options. So one is to use what we call coercion or casting to force age plus 1 to become a string. So that's quite a Python-y way to do it, and that'll also work in other programming languages such as BASIC. So that turns age plus 1 into a string, into text, so then we can concatenate it, join it on to that first part of the sentence. So let's just check that works. Okay, how old am I? 21. Next year you'll be 22, so that does do the trick. But if we dispense with the brackets, then and use the comma instead, then we don't need to do that. It should cope. So one of the benefits of using the comma is that it allows you to combine information of different types. So if I'm 29, next year I'll be 30. So different ways of combining information on the same line. So if you're using plus, you need to force them to be of the same type. You can also use the comma to separate things. So so to not separate things, because what we said right at the start is each time you use print, it starts a new line. So if I didn't put the comma in, what this would say when I ran it is it would say next year you'll be on one line, and then the age on the next line then. So how old are you? 15. And then it says next year you'll be, and on the next line it says 16. So sometimes if you're doing a complex calculation or something, just you might want to split it up onto 2 lines just to make it a bit more readable. But if you put a comma on the end of your print command like that, what that means is when you come across the next print command, don't start a new line. So when we run that, how old are you? 21. Next year you'll be 22. So it's put it all on the same line, even though the commands are on separate lines